your take on this. Do you think that steroids should be banned in professional wrestling?
Hell no. Absolutely not. I believe that all talents, should get ongoing medical exams. And in other words, they're the things that are important to know, more regular blood work than normal perhaps, but certainly, every week. Our guys should be checked. I think they are checked most every week. But our guys at AEW should be checked every Wednesday. Blood pressure, all that good stuff. This is what you can do simple. Just check some balance and keep a record of it. Any vacillation or change, you should be noted. It should be noted. So but I don't believe the steroids is it's a performance art. It's not the NFL, and I'm not so sure that it makes a shit of even the NFL. It's like saying it has the same negative baggage that marijuana has. It has not been accepted widely, mass appeal wise. It has not been accepted widely enough to get that. Okay, it's all right. And now the marijuana issues are becoming that way because states are saying that legalized marijuana, that and look, there's a lot of issues that come with it. I get it, folks. I get it. But the bottom line is what Stone Cold would say, there's a lot of money going to the bottom line in these state coffers that need the money for school books and things of that nature. As long as that money is being put to good use for the children and educating our people, for one thing, and health care, things of that nature, then hell yeah, let's create the new money, the new revenue. But it's just the steroid thing is, back then he was forced to say, yeah, sure it's got to be, because that was public sentiment. I don't know. I think the public sentiment on the anti-steroid issues have lessened in the last few years. I think, by and large, Conrad, that people are tired of hearing about that shit. The world has so much more ongoing than to worry about who's taking the sauce and who's not. So there's a lot of ways that you could still that could work, and I just don't believe it's an issue. That's just me, and I know, folks, I'm in the minority. I also know that it helps people recover. It gives them energy. Hey, look, I'm a big believer at my age of the testosterone implant. And I've had a testosterone implant every 5 months, done for, since the summer of 2017. And I've never felt better because I have more memory. My body's now creating more testosterone. So if those cats that take another way to help that matter, more power to them. We deserve to have a good quality of life because our tomorrows are never guaranteed. And as long as what you're doing is under doctor's care and legal, don't let anybody else tell you that you're making a mistake. It's your body in that regard.
What up, though? What up, though? This is MagMongoSlade. And as you just heard, we're going to talk today about what JR's comments about steroids and why I agree with them. Okay, so let's start at the end. The number one, with a bullet, reason why I'm okay with steroids is because it's a personal choice. If you want to do that, you should be able to. Now, the number one reason people will say, well, look at all the deaths in professional wrestling, all the dead guys. Look at all the British Bulldog and Mr. Perfect and Ravishing Rick Rude and all these guys. All our heroes would be alive. The Ultimate Warrior, they would all be alive if it wasn't for steroids. And I'll say, no, probably not. You're taking steroids and you're adding it with a bunch of other things. The more lethal problem in professional wrestling is drugs in general, but it's usually just painkillers. You talk about wrestlers like Eddie Guerrero who have been abusing their body with drugs and alcohol for years and years, and then they die young. That's what happens. It's not because they use steroids. If it was steroids, then Arnold Schwarzenegger would be dead. Sylvester Stallone would be dead. There would be numerous people who would be dead if it was just steroids alone. But steroids plus cocaine, steroids plus somas, painkillers, copious amounts of alcohol, the mixing of drugs. These sorts of things are very dangerous. But steroids alone isn't dangerous. Now, what I do disagree with JR on is he said he doesn't think that it matters that much in the NFL. I think that's different. It's very different to have a conversation about an athletic sport that is a legitimate competition. Now, the number one argument there would be that it's cheating, that it causes some type of unfairness. Now, if people have been following the sort of transgender issue in sports, then you know that the best argument I've ever heard for allowing transgender people in sports, and I'm not saying I disagree or agree, I'm not going to get into that here. What I am going to say is the best argument that I've heard is that there is no such thing as fair. And I agree with that. There is no such thing as fair. Some people's arms are longer than others. Some people's legs are longer than others. That gives people, some people's genetics are better than others. Some people recover from injury better than others. Some people get cancer and some people don't. Some people get head injuries and some people don't. We don't know, the best athletes. And that should be chosen based off what they can do as far as their natural output. But their natural output might not be fair. Okay. Their body might produce more testosterone than their opponents, or whatever. And that is an unfairness. But if it's a natural unfairness that's not caused by any outside chemicals, then sure, we just have to accept that as part of the way that the world works. And that's what we're looking for in actual competitions. We're looking for the people who are different from other people. We're looking for the people who can jump higher, who can run faster, who can lift more. That's the point of competitions, is to find out who can lift more. And sometimes people can lift more because they have a natural inclination to do it. They have more, better genetics, suited for powerlifting or something like that. In professional wrestling, it's not like that because it's not a legitimate competition. So it's more about, in professional wrestling, it's more about aesthetics. It makes you look like a tough guy who can crush a watermelon with one hand. And if that's the look that you want to go for, then I think you should be able to go for it. It still takes a tremendous amount of effort to look like the Ultimate Warrior. Sure, he was on steroids, probably, more than likely. And almost without a doubt, he was on steroids. But it still takes a tremendous amount of work ethic to look the way that he looked and to portray the kind of character that he portrayed. So now, if you want to say that the look is not that important and that we shouldn't let people look that type of way, or people shouldn't be able to, or shouldn't have to manipulate their looks, then we should be banning more than steroids. We should also be banning facelifts. We should also be banning Botox. We should also be banning gastric bypass. We should be banning anything that helps people change how they look or how they feel about how they look. Now, there are deleterious things like, bulimia and other body dysmorphic disorders where people get hung up over how they look and they can't help but change it somehow. Alexa Bliss talked about this in one of her documentaries, that she got breast implants and it helped her tremendously. Not physically, because we still, we can't really tell if she got breast implants because they're not that big, but also that it's, it was for her mental health. She felt like it was something she needed to do for her mental health. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's not my mental health, so it doesn't matter, right? But if a woman gets breast implants because it helps her get a better job, or it makes her look better on television, and she's on television, I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with an old actor getting a facelift. Like, I would think that somebody who's 70 should look 70. I mean, if you're going to look 70, look 70. But if somebody is, still going to be in action movies, like Sylvester Stallone, and he's going to do steroids and get a facelift, then, hey, I don't care. It's up to him. It's up to his body, and his body is how he makes money. It's how most people make their money. And if somebody wants to make their money by looking the part, they should be able to look the part. And steroids help you look the part. If nothing else, you're going to look like a tough guy if you're big and muscly and on steroids. And yes, I've seen stories. I think Edge was probably the most prominent one that I can think of off the top of my head, who used a steroid, human growth hormone, HGH. He used it to, he got busted on HGH a couple of years ago, probably over a decade ago, probably. And he said it helped him with his, one of his injuries. I think it might have been his neck injury. And if that's the case, that's good. Like, I mean, if steroids are bad because it makes, you know, for starters, like we said earlier, it's not going to kill you. I looked up steroid overdose, and burying people in research doesn't really do any good in this subject. So we just want to have a conversation and maybe just tell me what you think about it. But burying people in research doesn't really do any good. But Rey Mysterio recently came back and has had a career resurgence in 2019. Well, late in 2019. In early 2019, he was a crash dummy. But in late 2019, because of the stem cell injections that he got, could that be considered a steroid? Because it really changed his quality of ring work. It changed how he moved. It changed how he walked. You know, it changed the way people saw him. And when they saw Rey Mysterio, they was able to see something. Well, they still see 40-year-old Rey Mysterio, but it's a better 40-year-old Rey Mysterio than they would have seen 2 or 3 years ago. Because he changed. He got something. He got an outside. He took something from the outside and he helped them. Okay? It's stem cell injections. Should we ban stem cell injections and say that wrestlers can't get stem cell injections to make their performances better, to heal from injuries more, to prolong their careers? I mean, is that the argument you want to make? That we shouldn't allow people to change things about themselves to better and further their careers? And there's going to be people who don't want to. And I think we should spend some time talking about that, because this is where we come in with things like fat shaming, right? I'm all for fat shaming, and I say this as a man of husk myself. But if in the NFL, offensive linemen and offensive tackles, you know, they have to be a certain. There's a general weight for offensive linemen and offensive tackles, and wrestling is pretty much the same way. You have big guys like a Yokozuna or a Rikishi or a Viscera, and these guys are, you know, Vader is another one, King Kong Bundy. These big fat guys, right? They're the offensive tackles of the wrestling world. If they get too skinny, they can no longer do their job. If they get too big, they can no longer do their job. So there has to be a healthy weight for them to be able to project the big Van Vader look. And he has to be able to not only look that part, but maintain it. So he can't get too fat. He can't get too skinny. So when we talk about something like that, we need to be having a conversation about, well, should Vince McMahon be able to force people to lose weight? Yes. I think that if it's necessary, that if he sees that it's affecting their ring work, yes. I think that if he he should say the same thing about steroids. If steroids is affecting your body, you know, it's causing some type of renal problem, or it's causing wild mood swings, then yes, he should be able to say, look, you probably should lay off the steroids. But I also think that he shouldn't be able to force people to take them, right? So I think that as the boss, he should say, okay, this is what we're trying to promote, you know, and you don't want to quote unquote promote steroid use, which again, I don't care about that. But WWE always tries to promote this healthy lifestyle idea. And in doing so, it kind of makes them have to be against steroids, even though I know they're really not against steroids. But it also means they have to check other things like weight. And some people get really upset because they're talking about like, well, you're fat shaming the girls. Well, if they gained weight, then yeah, they need to be shamed, because they could hurt someone else, or they could be hurt if their weight is too high. You know, if they weigh too much, especially working with women, the upper body strength situation is real different. Okay. Guys, you might have some guys who might be able to compensate through strength. But with women, it's a real problem. Okay. So, but I don't care about people being bigger as long as it fits the character that you're trying to put out there. Like, I don't care about Samoa Joe being fat. You know, it doesn't bother me. But if it's becoming a problem to where it's hindering his performance, they have every right to say, okay, let's see if we can take you off TV for a couple of months and see if you can get your weight down. Okay. Now, should they fire people for being fat? No. I do agree with that. I don't think people should be fired for refusing to take steroids, for refusing to get breast implants, for refusing to do radical changes to their body. I do think that that's wrong. But I do also think that people who are willing to take that chance should be allowed to take that chance. I don't think that it should be Vince McMahon's decision or anyone else's. It should be the performer's decision. If Chavo Guerrero want to get hair plugs because it makes him look younger, why do I care? Why do I care? Okay, I don't give a shit that Chavo Guerrero want to get hair plugs. I don't give a shit. Okay, and some people might not even do that. Some people might do things like face paint. Like women get hair extensions because, it's easier on their natural hair. Lacey Evans was talking about this on Twitter, that her hair was falling out because the women were constantly pulling on her natural hair. Well, she should get extensions. And she was saying, oh, I don't want to get extensions. Get extensions. And I know a lot of people are like, well, the WWE always force their women to get hair extensions. Well, that's why. Because their hair is fragile and you're yanking it. You're yanking it, multiple times a week. Yeah, it's probably not good for you to have people pulling you by the hair. It's just not good for your hair. It's not good for your body to take a bunch of bumps either. But aesthetically, Lacey Evans can be okay with, hey, I took too many bumps versus the sassy Southern bald head. That's just not going to work. Okay, it's just not it doesn't have the same punch. Okay, but that's what steroids is. Steroids makes you look a certain way. And yes, it does have, it does cause chemical, it has a chemical reaction in the body. It does cause mood swings. There is roid rage is a real thing as far as I know. But if you worry about that, there are other things that women take that also causes mood swings called birth control pills. And I'm almost certain a lot of the women are probably going to end up being on birth control pills. Hell, we give birth control pills to teenage girls. Okay? It's not a good idea. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but it's not a good idea for young girls to be on birth control pills. If you look up the negative effects of birth control pills, you'll see that you probably don't want your daughter taking it. All right. It causes mood swings. It causes all type of personality problems. And the younger that they take it, the worse it gets, really. Just like I wouldn't want my son taking steroids. I wouldn't want my daughter on birth control pills. Okay. Because you're pumping chemicals into your body that you really don't need. And it does have an effect on your brain. But if they become an adult and she wants to take birth control pills, I can't do nothing about that. If my son wants to take steroids, I can't do nothing about that. Okay? It's all about what you want to do. Like I'm perfectly fine if it's the performer making a well-researched or maybe even an emotional decision of something they just want to do because they're on TV and it is a visual medium. I'm going to say that a lot when it comes to discussing wrestlers and how they look. It is a visual medium. People do not listen to wrestling on a radio. People watch it on television. And certain things like getting a tan, working out, having appropriate haircuts and all those sort of things, it does matter. When you see people, it does matter. It matters. And people think that it doesn't matter, but it does. And it does affect whether you can appeal to a wider audience. How you look does affect how you deal to a wider audience. And I'm not even talking about race and gender. I'm just talking about whether you're big or small, you're tall or short, whether you're black or white or female or male or, these things matter because people react to you a certain way. And we hear a lot about the airport test. If you see the guy in the airport, are you going to look at him? This is how the great Khali gets a job, right? It's not because he's good at doing flying cross body from the top rope. It's because if you saw the guy in person, you're thinking, holy shit, he's a big guy. That's a big dude. And that helped him get a job. It's not fair that he's 7'4" or whatever the hell he was, 7'1" maybe. It's not his fault. It's nobody's fault. But he's an attraction because he has a certain look. And in a visual medium, that matters. And steroids helps helps with that. It helps with the aesthetic of looking like the tough guy, of looking like the hero. It was not the steroids that killed our heroes. It was probably painkillers, cocaine, fucking alcohol. Okay, and also guys smoking a ton of cigarettes. We have to realize that a lot of the guys who died young, relatively young, we have to say, because there's no normal range of when people should die. But when we know that of people who died young, we also know that in the world there was not that much of a focus on fitness and nutrition. You have to be in shape, yes, but what that meant was they didn't know what that meant at the time. Okay, they didn't, they were chain smoking cigarettes, drinking beer every night, and partying like a rock star, snorting coke, popping pills, doing all this type of stuff, not really thinking about, hey, how is this going to affect me in 15 years? We're a lot more alert about it now. So I actually think that it might be more appropriate to use steroids now, because at least doctors and the fans both know about the health risks of steroids more. Steroids are probably not going to cause you to have a heart attack, but it might damage some organs. Like I think you might be able to, I think I read, it affects your kidneys, because I know that's superstar Billy Graham's problem. He has kidneys issues. And maybe that's the risk that you're willing to go through as a performer to make money now in order to take care of yourself later. But that should be a personal choice. And if you want to look like the average Joe and make average Joe money and just take bumps, then okay, that should be okay too. Because some guys can be an average Joe and make more money that way. If you're a Kevin Owens and you can work, doing promos and wrestling a t-shirt, okay. But if you're a guy who wants to be like the Ultimate Warrior and you want to be able to, walk around without a shirt on all the time, that should be okay too. It should always just be up to the performer. And then it should also be up to the promoter to say, hey, this is what we can use. This is what we can't use. Like we can't use 120-pound offensive tackles. That's just not going to work. Right? If you're 110 pounds, you're not going to make the football team as an offensive tackle. It's not going to work. And if you're 700 pounds, you're not going to be on the team because your agility is going to be shit. Your stamina is going to be shit. You're probably not going to be physically strong, and you're going to be a liability to the team. Both sides. There has to be a healthy range. And I think that you could do that. You could make that healthy range, and it could work for the company and the performers. But ultimately, I just don't give a shit. When I was a kid, I didn't know who was on steroids, and it didn't make me any difference because being on steroids didn't automatically make you any good. There's tons of wrestlers who was on fucking steroids. I think maybe Hercules Hernandez was on steroids. Who the fuck cared? Really? Did that make him a better wrestler? No. It didn't make him more agile. It just made him big. So, I mean, if your favorite guy, if Finn Balor grew 50 pounds of muscle overnight, is that automatically going to make him a worse worker? I think so. And I think that most people who saw him would probably say that. Like, it would probably make him worse if he got much, much bigger out of nowhere. Because his body is going to be made to move in a certain way. His brain is going to think his body can move in a certain way. So it's probably not a good idea for a guy to gain 50 pounds of muscle, with the help of steroids. But it's also probably not a good idea for a guy who's, because we see this in UFC as well. Guys cut weight and they get lightheaded. It affects their stamina. If you compare it to real sports, you will see what I'm saying. You can't cut too much weight. You can't gain too much weight. But steroids just makes you look a different way. It doesn't really cause it's not the big demon that pro wrestling fans have been told that it is. It's just a little helper like hair extensions, like a facelift, like Botox. You still have to put in the work. You still have to put in the effort. You still have to be able to cut promos. You still have to be able to work. Okay, being on steroids is not enough. You know, like the Ultimate Warrior is probably the ultimate, which is a good choice of words. Probably the ultimate guy in terms of had a great look, but couldn't do much else. I know Lex Luger is probably another one. But even they had, you know, Ultimate Warrior had an insane amount of charisma and character, and the presentation did wonders for him. And he had that, and Lex Luger did not have that. You know, Lex Luger didn't have the Ultimate Warrior presentation, you know? So he also wasn't covered in the same way as far as his weaknesses being covered. But we're getting off a little bit off subject. So I really don't care about steroids. I don't believe that if you can make them legal and tax them, that the state will do anything good with the money. I know that's just JR being hopeful that maybe steroids will fall into the realm of weed one day, and it's just a personal choice and you could use it and it be taxed. It's probably not going to happen because people are obsessed with fairness and the perception of what's fair and what's not fair. So it's probably not going to happen. I know a lot of wrestling fans too are obsessed with the idea of wrestling killed my heroes, even though it's probably not true. They more than likely was abusing themselves with drugs and alcohol and a bunch of other things. And I don't like the idea that it's chemical, the chemicals in the body. I think that, you know, you should keep that type of stuff to a minimum. But again, certain people can do whatever they want, and they have a right to protect their bodies because their body is their investment. And if they want to look their best, they should be able to. And I'm okay with that. So, that's all I have to say. Send all your tweets to @MongoSlade8. Have a wonderful day. Happy wrestling. Peace.